Please welcome Edward Hertzman, founder and CEO, Athletech News. Edward Zouroudis, CEO, Evolt. Mitchell Keys, Vice President of Global Operations, Anytime Fitness Purpose Brands, LLC. Jeff G. Zwiefel, Health and Fitness Expert Strategist and Advisor, former President and COO, Lifetime. Cyrus Massoumi, CEO and founder, Dr. B.
Well, someone's very popular up here. All right. So, this has been a hot topic for the past 2 days. So let's start out with that kind of a macro question for everyone here, and try to 2 minutes or less. So this will be the first and last question. GLP-1s are fundamentally changing health, wellness, and fitness, and I feel like we're still at the very, very early stages. How would you all assess the fitness industry's response to the rise of GLP-1s so far? We'll kick it off down there.
Well, I think initially it was very defensive. Is this medication going to be cannibalizing us? I think it's moved into how do we complement. A lot of people are on these medications. How do we complement the fact that they're on them? And I think what needs to happen is to go to the next level, which is to be the gatekeeper. People really should be doing the hard work, the exercise, the diet change, the resistance training before they actually go to a GLP-1. That's the responsible way to prescribe it. And so I think very much moving to that sort of gatekeeper and educator role, I think, is very important for the fitness industry.
Jeff?
Hey, look, we've been using the product for like the last 2 years now in our Miura longevity and performance program. I believe the industry as a whole has been mixed with all the excitement and the tremendous data behind the efficacy of the weight loss results, obviously the impact on type 2 diabetes, as well as the downstream complications related to obesity. The good thing is there's tremendous excitement, great awareness. 35% of Americans say they want to be on it. The TAM is supposed to grow $6.7 billion for the industry as a whole. We've got a tailwind. Consumers, members are 3 times more likely to exercise when they're on a GLP-1, so the data is clear, but we have an opportunity to steer this conversation, as Cyrus is saying, and control the narrative and do a much better job of ensuring that we're providing holistic solutions that we'll talk about more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think initially it was this resistance, right? This almost an insecurity from our industry, because our industry was founded on hard work, right? The grit, the hard work, putting in the time and the effort. And I think initially the industry, through our insecurity, was just like, oh, this is the easy button, right? And we kind of shamed that a little bit. But I think now folks are starting to realize that this is what we've really wanted the whole time in our industry. We want people to strength train. And we need to accept that. So I think we've started to turn that corner, and we need to lean into that more of acceptance of this category to make sure that we can support everybody.
Good?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just looking at our client base in particular, 3 categories like the guys are saying. So probably, there's a group that really have embraced it to make sure, they're putting in-clinic facilities in the bricks and mortar facility, which is great. And then there's the other one that are partnering with telehealth providers as well. And then there's the other ones a bit resistant, thinking they're verging to the dark side, embracing it. So, everyone knows the importance of training and monitoring skeletal muscle mass and making sure the side effects don't come into play. So, yeah, I think it's good. There's a shift there that people are realizing they need to get on board correctly.
So Jeff, you mentioned obviously you guys have been very early to the trend with Miura. What have you learned in the first year and a half, 2 years of implementing GLP-1s into the business?
Well, we learned a ton. Like the rest of the panel said, I've been in the industry for 4 decades, being a part of the Lifetime brand for 25 years for me, growing it to 1.5 million members. We surveyed 400,000 of our affluent, highly educated customers, and it was a no-brainer that we felt like we had a tremendous right to win in this category, to position ourselves in doing this as a trusted resource to the consumer. So we've learned a ton. We've learned about dosing schedules, how to titrate the product out to mitigate the nasty side effects of nausea, diarrhea, constipation, and dehydration and things. We've learned about ensuring that protein is a critical element, things like fiber, magnesium, these kinds of nutrients, and a multivitamin, because obviously the amount of macros that the consumer is taking is problematic and disconcerting. So we've learned obviously that body composition analysis and resistance training and the accountability with that is absolutely crucial. And the check-ins frequently of doing a comprehensive blood biomarkers along with these patients with MD, NP, and PA support has been critical as part of our journey to be distinctive and do it right.
So Cyrus, there's been quite a bit of talk about taking this drug responsibly. So there's like three parts of my question. A, where do telehealth services like Dr. B come in to ensure that people are taking this in a safe, responsible way? One. Two, how are you encouraging and making sure that they are working out, they're implementing stretch training into their daily life? And three, like how could the people in the audience, people running fitness brands like Jeff, like Mitchell, leverage a Dr. B to ensure responsible GLP-1 usage?
So I think the first part is the standard of care. People talk about this being a quick fix, but the standard of care, if you're following it, requires people to spend at least 6 months changing their diet, their exercise regime, and do that before they even talk to anyone and take the medication. I think what we've seen over the last year and a half, 2 years, is an explosion of people who are using it as a quick fix. I'd say that's probably about 75 to 80% of the market of people who are taking these medications are taking it in sort of an irresponsible way where they haven't done the hard work up front. So I think what telehealth brands like Dr. B and what fitness brands can do is really to collaborate and to make sure that they're holding the patient accountable, that they're only giving them these treatments if they're going and showing up to the gym. They're only giving them these treatments if they've committed to the lifestyle change. And I think in those situations, it doesn't become like a life sentence. I think so much of the medical community is talking to patients like this is something you're going to take for the rest of your life. And what we've seen is in our patient population, that's not true. People can take it 3-6 months, have the long-term benefits, changing their basal metabolic rates, and being able to actually just use it as a tool to get to where they want to get to and be done with it.
So Ed, obviously there's many metrics that your platform measures. But for the purpose of this conversation, why are you seeing such an uptick in business around facilities looking to have body composition and have metrics because they see more customers coming in taking GLP-1s and they want to ensure the personal trainers, the staff is able to track? What is it that your tool is able to do, your equipment's able to do?
Yeah, so a basic rundown on what it does. So we deliver over 40 different measuring parameters. There are metrics there that are suited to a range of different modalities or, just what people's goals may be. But when we're talking GLP-1, there's two metrics that matter most. Being on the lean mass side, you've got your skeletal muscle mass. These are things that we can control and change. And then on the fat mass side, you've got subcutaneous fat and visceral fat. So being able to monitor those, essentially, you want to be dropping fat. And then on skeletal muscle mass, maintaining or increasing at all times. We know, that equation's been around since we've all started, been in the industry for decades, but more so now than ever. Being able to quantify that impact, the quality of change over time. We've seen a massive surge in our business, as you can imagine. Anytime's one of our largest customers in the world, but our data, what it's showing us, there's a questionnaire. When people sign up on our platform, they pick their goal. Is it fat loss, muscle gain, or better health? Previously, 9.5 million scans, people would be, 67% of that population was telling us they wanted fat loss. The last 2 years, that's shifted the other way. There's been a massive swing to probably 54% now is muscle gain and better health. So we're seeing that, and year-on-year growth with our clients, we're seeing probably 65%, year-on-year growth with scan utilization. So meaning the device in the premises that's been there for quite some time, the utilization's going through the roof. So people are seeking this data. They want to track quality of change over time and make sure it's effective.
So Mitchell, that was kind of my next question is how are you implementing Evolts across your facilities and what are the usage stats kind of telling you about the customers and what they're looking for?
Yeah, so we'll have Evolt in 5,500 clubs across the globe. It is our trusted provider for a few reasons. One, it's the simplicity of while they do collect over 40 different metrics, taking that information and what we've learned is we need to distill it and simplify it, not only for the consumer, but our coaches as well. Taking the complicated and making it simple to consume and understand. Otherwise, it's analysis paralysis, and they don't know what to do or where to start. So Evolt's done a great job of helping integrate into our smart coaching ecosystem, both for our coaches as well as our Anytime Fitness members through our app and our digital ecosystem to ensure that they can track what they want to change. You can't change what you don't measure. And Evolt does a great job of tracking those. And we've had to lead with, we've chosen to lead with education in partnership with Evolt, curating a great amount of education for our coaches, not just coaches, but managers as well. Like selling memberships, you need to be able to speak to the benefits of this. And the ongoing tracking of this data has been a super powerful tool. So we can see at any given point, any club across the globe, who's seeing better health results than other clubs, some competitive advantages, usage increases with folks as they engage with Evolts. We see reduction in attrition, and it fits well into our holistic training, nutrition, and recovery philosophy. So it's been great, and we lead with education, and Evolt's been a great partner for that.
So as a follow-up to that, I'd love to hear what you and Jeff both say. What are you doing to ensure that the trainers on the floor have the education necessary?
Yeah.
So I have to imagine you go to the gym today, it's not 5 minutes of stretching and then you bench press for 55 minutes and you walk out. The consumer is much more demanding. So if there's this if we all agree that the TAM for potential customers is growing, GLP-1s is opening up the potential, clientele base, how are you ensuring that your trainers are educated to properly handle this new cohort?
Yeah, one of the things that I actually learned when I was with Lifetime is you have to lead with education. And we actually made that decision 6 years ago when I started with Anytime to create a good foundation for education for our coaches and managers, because we know the industry will change. But if we have that foundation for education, we could build on it whichever way the industry goes. So the good news is that we've created a training, nutrition, recovery kind of 101 education that's been our foundation for all of our coaches. And as the education has come out with partners like ISSA or NASM, where they have some specialty courses on weight loss medications, along with our trusted partners internally and our experts internally, we have been able to curate some education built on the foundation of human metabolism for coaches. And it's been a lot simpler to implement because we have that foundation of education.
Jeff?
Yeah, no, we've obviously been committed to education and have a great partnership with NASM as well, and pushed hard on that particular module to ensure that came, and we need to continue to evolve that. But our internal education with our trainers, our Fit Pros, includes everything from webinars that we've created to online certification and training on the topic, because I think all of us as operators recognize the opportunity and the tailwind, but it's difficult sometimes to execute this in a holistic way, right? So we want to make sure that our teams are fully prepared and armed to create that right trust and respect from the customer. So we hired, of course, as part of our broader Miura longevity program, where GLP-1s are probably 40 to 50% of our member population. We have a 95% retention rate on that program right now. And our Chief Science Officer, Jim Laval, is continually to generate with our internal education team content relative to GLP-1s and how to use them in the right way.
Cyrus, I'm wondering what the data is showing on your side. We all started out by saying the market's growing, but are you seeing? Is there any way? I don't know if you're able to tell this from who's taking it, but are you seeing these people that take the GLP-1s actually going into fitness facilities? Are they actually taking the advice and working out? Are they doing it at home? Are they doing it in person? Do you have any stats on that?
So we do. We only actually prescribe to people who commit to working out, and obviously that's a patient attestation, so they could lie to us, but we won't actually let them move forward unless they're committing to doing that up front. And what we've seen is from the earliest patient cohorts, generally, whereas the average weight loss that comes from lean muscle mass is about 30%, for people that are on our program, generally it's sub 5%. And it's because they're actually checking their body composition, because they're working out, because we're doing it in partnership with fitness brands that are providing them with unique content specific to GLP-1s, providing them unique classes specific to GLP-1s that enable them to, I think, have these outsized outcomes. And the net result is it's not something they need to take forever. They change their body composition and the muscle mass starts burning the fat, and they don't need to be on the GLP-1 anymore.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do what I said earlier, is that titration schedule, that dosing schedule that really helps mitigate some of that loss of lean body mass too, along with the other critical components that you're speaking of, Cyrus. So no question about it. And so I think that's really important thought process to add to the equation.
So look, we have, I don't know, 500 plus operators that have walked through the doors here the past couple of days. A lot of them may say, okay, this sounds great, but how are we going to implement a GLP-1 strategy into our business, whether it's HVLP, whether it's luxury? I'd like to hear from all of you. And Ed, let's start with you. Like, how can people actually monetize GLP-1s?
No, pretty good question to ask me. Obviously, with Evolt, I think it starts at that is the gateway. You know, like we've always said, baseline measurement's the most important thing. I couldn't believe, coming from a different industry, I come from the fight game, coming over to the US and just seeing a lot of gyms here. I mean, lifetime early adopters. I've been watching them for 20 plus years, having their body composition machines, but I just don't understand how people can start or embark on any wellness journey without tracking that baseline measurement, that quality of change over time. Still today, there's a lot of clubs I see they're using a handheld Omron that's been around for 30, 40 years. But I think understanding baseline measurement, then we've taken it one step further when we can provide a individualized macronutrient profile, telling them how many grams of protein, carbs, fats they require. So the upselling opportunities there, or the companion selling, provide meal plans, you know, add that as part of the onboarding. Selling supplements, because we know a GLP-1, what do you call them, a patient or a member, you know, one of your people working out in the gym, you want to make sure they're getting enough protein, you know, intake in their diet. We're hearing it does suppress your appetite, we know that. I mean, I've dabbled with it a little bit. There's a lot of people, Dr. Lippman was saying before, you know, it does suppress your appetite.
You are looking a little younger.
I am. I think I lost 40 pounds, you know, which is, no, I tried it because we wanted to be making sure that we weren't losing skeletal muscle mass as well. Are there myths around the actual medication? Does it really do what they're saying it does? I didn't experience that. I maintained skeletal muscle mass because I tracked, I ate enough protein in my diet to make sure that I could keep the right body composition. So I do believe they're the on-selling companion tools, making sure meal planning, coaching, nutrition, whether it be dietitians, like I said, your telehealth providers there with, you know, dietitian live platforms or whatever it might be. There's many opportunities there to make money out of or incremental spend, the people that are on the medication. So.
Mitchell, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything Ed said. I think one thing as well is what I've learned in my career is nothing sells better than the reassessment. So the initial assessment is a great thing, but if you can't get somebody to come back to actually complete that reassessment, it's a little bit good for naught, right? So the reassessment tells you, are you making progress? Are you doing the right things? How can we manipulate your programming and training, nutrition, and recovery to ensure that you're getting the best results? And if you are in that reassessment, high five, handshake, and you drive referrals through that process. So I think oftentimes enough, gyms focus so much on, you know, if they have a great tool like Evolt and getting that initial assessment, but if they're not coming back for that reassessment, I think it's a little bit of a loss leader, right? So the reassessment can drive great referrals, retention. I mean, what's the worst thing that you can happen if somebody's not hiring you as a personal trainer, but they're still getting great results through your tutelage? I think that's a win, right? I mean, regardless of whether or not they're actually paying for that, for your time. So I think the reassessment in our industry likely needs to be reinforced as almost more important than that initial assessment so that we can support that member on their journey.
How much does this help with retention? Because this is the number one problem everyone is talking about.
Absolutely. Well, it drives usage, right? And it drives that usage, and there's a little bit of the gamification for the consumer that wants it, meeting them where they're at, taking the complicated and simplifying it where you can so that if somebody doesn't care about all the other metrics, we're focused on lean body mass and weight and body fat, and that's it. We can simplify it as simple as that. Or if they do care, the consumer wants, you know, a little bit more information. As you educate the consumer, you empower the consumer. And as they become more empowered, they just care a little bit more. And that's where you really transpire from being a trainer to a coach, is when you're, as a coach, you can educate and empower that consumer to not just go to the doctor's office and accept the prescription, but ask a few other questions, right? I think I heard it on the earlier panel that you had with your doctor of like, why am I taking this? What are some of the side effects? What are some of the nutrient deficiencies that I might incur while taking this prescription? And I think a lot of consumers are scared to ask those questions. So leveraging education to empower coaches to then provide that level of education to the clients, I think is super important. And by all means, staying in our scope of practice. Like, you shouldn't be questioning the doctor, you shouldn't be talking, we as trainers shouldn't be talking about titration or anything like that. Leave that to the professionals, but we need to support them and empower them and educate them.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, the retention side of things, you touched on it earlier or yesterday. The ROI, what are we looking at? But what we've done, we've also got a regression report. So at a click of a button, we can go through their database. I think they've performed 3.5 million reports or scans through Evolt. So we can go through and filter out everyone there that is backsliding in their results. They can reach out to them, give them a bit of love and care, and just say, we know you joined Anytime Fitness because of you wanted to get a desired result. How can we help you on that journey? Here's a free PT session or a group exercise class. So retention's a big thing, and the case studies coming out of what we've done, we've lowered the attrition up to 2.5%, 3% across the board.
I think the other piece to it is, initially we're, kind of in this game of like nickel and diming, like, oh, your initial assessment's free, but your reassessments cost. And we're really trying to coach our franchisees to get away from that, because it needs to be part of that holistic experience. Every member gets this, regardless of what color card you're using. This is part of our member experience at Anytime Fitness to ensure that you get holistic health, progress, and results. So I think building it into that member journey and that member life cycle is critical. Otherwise, it will become an afterthought if it's behind a paywall.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a couple things that we've talked about, right? I think everybody understands the essential necessity of staff education, training, certification. One, I think the relationships with the medical provider and the partnerships with the trusted, respected telehealth partners like yourself that we know are going to do it the right way, that become the extension of the operation. And then the opportunity to just creatively bundle these services as the operator, as the turnkey solution for the customer that's not available to them anywhere else. And what we're talking about is personal training, assessments, reassessments, nutrition, protein. There's no question that there's incremental revenue generation opportunities and amazing stickiness, because once that customer creates that connection to a doctor that's trusted and a fit pro, as we know, that's trusted and respected, that can solve these problems. Because this drug, like testosterone, has somewhat of a taboo still about it, right?
Yeah.
Our members don't want to come in and admit they're on, Ozempic, Mounjaro, Wegovy.
Hey, I just did.
And so, but it's coming, right?
Agreed.
And that's a discussion that, we've got to figure out how to ensure that one of our health professionals can really make sure that they're on top of. Because we've got to think about things like bone density retention, right? With this, we've got to avoid Ozempic face and Ozempic button. We've got to avoid it being misused. It's a $111 billion category, right? That it's been 4% of the population. It's going to be 9% or double digit by 2028. Easy. I believe it'll be 20% by 2028.
The drug's going to be bigger than our whole industry.
It's a mega trend that's here to stay.
It's a tsunami, for sure.
That's here to stay.
Yep.
So Cyrus, I want to hear your answer to this, but maybe you could add, an example of how you've partnered with like an F45, like how you're working with some facilities that don't maybe have the medical staff like a Lifetime, but still want to be in this business.
Yeah, there are a lot. We get a lot of inquiries from fitness brands that want to participate, and we've heard of a lot of telehealth companies that have approached fitness brands about this. And the thing that I would just leave this audience with is that there are 3 industries in this country that are heavily regulated: alcohol, tobacco, and healthcare. So a lot of the intuitive things you think that work in every other industry from a marketing perspective, there's a lot of regulation about what you can and cannot do in healthcare. For example, in healthcare, it is against the law in about 30 states to actually pay for a doctor to pay for a referral. What that means is if you send a lead to a telehealth company and they're paying you for that lead, it's criminal offense. Someone can go to jail for that. And I don't think that's well known within the fitness industry. However, there's a responsible way for how you can do this. You can actually do a program where you bring the fitness partner closer to the care that's being delivered. You actually have an independent third party that comes in and values what the medical provider is doing, what the fitness provider is doing. You create a combined program so that each party can participate in both the delivery of the care and the payment of the fees that come from the consumer. And so doing this it can be done in a compliant way, but you have to be very sensitive to healthcare laws. And we have plenty of people on staff to walk any fitness brand that wants through how to do this in a responsible way to make a big business from it at the same time.
Is there anything, you just brought up a point that probably a lot of people are not aware of. Is there any other, red flags, cautions people should be aware of when trying to roll this out?
Obviously, patient protection, HIPAA, is like a real thing. And there's a lot of misunderstanding of where HIPAA applies, where it does not apply. The average consumer, about a third of consumers can use their insurance to pay for this. So if you're going to roll out a program, you're going to touch insurance, which means HIPAA applies to you. If you don't touch insurance, like your doctor, I don't think he took insurance. HIPAA probably doesn't apply to him. But for every other insurance touching provider in any capacity, it does. So it's important that if you're doing this with a healthcare provider and they're passing information of who's participating and who's not, that you get the right approvals, that they can release that information to you and your fitness brand without creating a HIPAA obligation. Otherwise, it's a mess, and you don't want to be a HIPAA business associate if you can avoid it, because that requires a different level of compliance that I think most brands are not going to want to do. And it's solved by doing the right disclosures, having the right agreements on the part of the patient.
Jeff, you're very open about how much you guys learned through iteration, failings, successes. In the early stages, how concerned were you guys, and should people be concerned with the liability of this?
Yeah, no question. I think, like I've told folks before, like most people early on, I was extremely skeptical. We've seen fen-phen, we've seen ephedrine, so we've seen different approaches that have all been quick fix, and until we really did the research on this, and recognized the efficacy of the drug and the effectiveness with trizepatide up over 20% weight loss. So the way that we've done it, obviously, is only through our medical provider relationship, and that's the way we know that we could execute it in a safe and efficacious way. Through our medical directors, and make sure that affiliation is required along with the comprehensive blood work, along with the correlation with a registered dietitian and a personal trainer. That turnkey solution was the way we knew this had to be done and elevated to get the trust and the respect and ensure that our brand never got degraded by the affiliation of this drug. I mean, there wasn't one media outlet that wasn't calling us every day when they heard that we got associated with this drug. So it was good and bad because of the excitement, because of the energy, but we need to make sure that we as fit pros and health professionals are managing this narrative and taking control. We have an amazing opportunity, unlike ever before, to be the leaders of ensuring that the consumers are getting this done right.
Yeah, you're right. It's that duty of care. That's what you're really providing. If the people are going to take it, make sure you're providing the outcomes.
So Mitchell, you mentioned over 5,000 clubs. There's a lot of people you're touching every single day. You talk about the responsibility of educating your staff, the trainers, but what role should the clubs take in educating the members about how to take this safely and effectively? Is that something you want to touch, or is that leave it, buyer beware? You think you guys have a responsibility through your trainers, through your communication, to educate your audience on this?
Yeah, we do have a responsibility to educate our audience within our scope of practice. So we have aligned to training, nutrition, and recovery. And as a brand, Anytime Fitness provides coaching to every member across the globe, regardless of whether or not they have a trainer in their club. So, the omni-channel approach to content and education through our digital channels is just as important, if not more important, knowing what our PT penetration rates are, to ensure that the consumer can understand it. So we have to, meet the consumer where they're at. and welcome them on that journey and provide that level of education kind of across the spectrum. Again, some consumers are very educated and they want more information, so we have to be able to provide that outlet to them, but also some don't know where to start. Right? So taking that simplified approach, and as we lead and lean with our brand promise of training, nutrition, and recovery, we know that that's a foundation that can withstand GLP-1s or whatever the next trend might be.
So this last question, you know, I'm a big believer in staying in your lane. You can't be everything to everybody. Everyone now wants, you know, a sauna and a plunge and this and this and this. So Cyrus, is there people that you would say, look, don't get into this? Like, this sounds great. We're talking about the economic opportunities, the expansive market opportunities, but would you say, because you say you got all these inbound inquiries, how often are you saying to people, maybe this is not right for you?
I think if you have a member base where they are not actively engaged, they're not showing up, they're not doing the resistance training, to the extent that someone has a facility like that, that's probably not the right kind of member to introduce to these types of things, because they're going to be going down the shortcut. And the shortcut, I think 20 years from now, we're going to see a public health crisis around everybody that's taken the shortcut.
All right, guys. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much. This is extremely informative, and I think there's a lot of questions probably. So please stick around and talk to everyone. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you much.
Thanks, man.
Well done.